Starting it off in the number 5 spot of the best 750 watt power supplies is the Thermaltake Toughpower GF1 ARGB, coming in at a price tag of $114.99. If you want to check out any of these 5 power supplies, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. And do keep in mind, these power supplies are balancing value per dollar here. So these are what I think the best 5 picks are if you are looking for a 750 watt power supply. Now the Toughpower GF1 is fully modular. For the connections, this has a 24-pin motherboard connection, only 3 PCIe connections, and only 4 SATA and Molex connections. Then you have your RGB header for the fan, as well as also having a 0 fan at low loads on and off switch, which is pretty cool. And it has a color and mode switching button on the PSU itself that again is going to control like the RGB without having to go into a software, which is pretty cool. One of the design elements that I really like is cutouts on 3 sides next to that fan. So including the sides and edges, this actually has cutouts so you can see that RGB in your case, even if it's, well, a downwards facing placement. So even if you're placing it downwards, you're still gonna see that RGB, and you know I love RGB. As for the fan size, this is a 140 millimeter ARGB fan. Now, as far as cables, none of these are sleeved. They're just your pretty much standard black cables. Really at this price point, they put a lot of their money towards, well, the cool RGB and then, well, actually giving you good components overall, because you also don't get a ton of connections here. But again, the price point is actually really, really good for having an RGB fan. But what cables do they include? Well, you get 2 6+2 by 6+2 PCIe cables. Then you get a single additional just PCIe cable. So those 2 6+2s will allow you to do, well, bigger GPUs in there, but not a ton of PCIe cables. You get your 24-pin motherboard connection, 3 SATA cables with only 3 SATA connections on each cable. Then you get 1 Molex cable with 3 Molex connections on each cable. And then you obviously get your little RGB hookup to your motherboard. Now here you can see the internals on screen. And while I have a basic knowledge of the electrical components inside, I'm sure that a few people will have much more knowledge than me. So you can see on screen, this is the inside of it. I also don't recommend doing this as you will void your warranty. I just did this for the video. Inside, we have use of large heat sinks, although the overall placement of the components does look like it would hinder airflow just a little bit more than others on the list. But overall, as the fan won't be on even most of the time, this really shouldn't be an issue. And if you have any concerns, well, the warranty here is very good at 10 years. So you have a full 10-year warranty. As for colors, this only comes in black with that RGB. And going over this, you might think, well, there are cheaper 750 watt power supplies. I do want to do a little note of caution here that not all power supplies are created equal. This is not something where you want to cheap out. You could damage all of your components and destroy all of them. There are major companies that screw up power supplies. Gigabyte. So this is definitely not something to cheap out on. So this is why I made this list to balance the price of it with also the quality of the power supply and some little bit of extras, like if you want a very cost-effective one with RGB, well, that's what this one gives you. But with that, let's move on to the number 4 spot, which is the EVGA SuperNOVA 750 G6, coming in at a price tag of $149.99. This is a fully modular power supply. For the connections on the PSU itself, we have the motherboard, a really good 6 connections for PCIe, and then 4 connections for SATA and Molex. As for the fan size, this is a 140 millimeter fan. Now, while this does give you more PCIe connections, which I really do appreciate, only the motherboard cable is sleeved here. And at this price, it's not highly competitive. Now, again, this doesn't affect the internal components and how good the power supply is gonna be overall, but the value here, while it's good, it's not quite as good as something like the number 1, number 2 spot. But the reason it's a top 5 list as well, things go out of stock, and, well, the prices fluctuate all the time, so check the links below for current pricing. All right, you have 1 24-pin motherboard cable, which is, again, the sleeved cable. That's the only sleeved cable in this power supply. You have 4 PCIe cables, with 2 of those being the 6+2 and 6+2 variants. So those are great for your higher wattage GPUs. 3 SATA cables with 3 connections on each cable. 1 Molex cable with 4 connections on the cable, and then 1 Molex to FDD adapter. Also in the box, you get a little cheap tester and 5 nice Velcro cable management things, which is kind of cool. As for the internals, I couldn't actually get this one open. However, if after B-roll, I do manage to just pry this thing apart, then this is what it will look like. Those are the internals. Although I don't really know what it looks like as of right now. But speaking about that, the warranty here is also incredibly good at 10 years, guys. That warranty is definitely a huge selling factor. And as for the colors, you can only get this in black. That's pretty standard for PSUs. But with that, let's move on to the number 3 spot, which is the Cooler Master XG750 Plus Platinum. Coming in at a price tag of $249.99, you might be absolutely jumping out of your pants right now, and yeah, that's a lot of money. In fact, I don't really recommend it at that price, but it's consistently on sale. At the time of filming, it's $166.72, so that's way more reasonable. I also do want to say that this is the most premium power supply on the list here, but some of you might not like those extras, which is why it's not in the number 1 spot, if that makes sense. I think value per dollar, number 1 spot's obviously the best, but this number 3 spot, well, it's the most premium, and let's go over that. As you'd expect, it's fully modular. You have your motherboard connection, 5 PCIe connections, 4 SATA and Molex connections, and then a USB for controlling the RGB and the screen, the little like screen on the side. Yeah, that's right. And this has a 135mm fan that has that sweet RGB, baby. Now, like I mentioned, this has an ARGB fan as well as a screen that can display real-time performance data, fan speed, temperature, and power load. That is very cool. I really especially like the power load. That's just very cool to see how efficiently your PSU is running, how much power your actual rig is drawing. I really, really like that. Now, what the screen displays, the RGB, all of that can be controlled in Cooler Master software, which I think is Master Plus. So if you do have a case that has like an opening on the side for your PSU, that is a very, very cool thing to have all of that data shown there. I like that. Now, surprisingly here, all of your money goes into the screen, the RGB, and the internal components, as none of the cables are sleeved, which is a little bit surprising here, but I do get, as I'm sure the screen and the fan overall did cost quite a bit of that budget when compared to the others on the list. All right, so for the cables, you get one 24-pin motherboard connection, 2 PCIe cables with an additional 2 6x2 plus 6x2 PCIe for your GPU or certain motherboards, things like that. So in total, 4 PCIe cables, 3 SATA cables with now 4 connections per cable. We love to see it. 1 Molex cable with 4 connections on the cable, and then 1 USB cable for that RGB that's gonna plug into your motherboard. Now for the internals, even with that side screen and a little bit more components overall in this power supply, they still managed to give you great airflow with nice beefy heat sinks that don't look like they would inhibit airflow too much. Overall, I think they did a great job with the overall design. Now for the warranty, you get 10 years on all of like the power supply-ness, and then you get 3 years on the ARGB-ness of it. And as far as colors, this only comes in black. But with that, let's move on to the number 2 spot, which is the XPG Core Reactor, coming in at a price tag of $129.99. This is fully modular. It's got your motherboard connection, 5 connections for PCIe, and then 4 SATA and Molex connections. Now, this does have a smaller fan size of about 120 millimeters. Now, the really nice thing here is that all the cables are very nicely sleeved, except obviously you like your SATA and Molex are not sleeved, as they never really make their way into the front of the case, I guess in most situations. But yeah, really nice to see these all sleeved. For the cables that they give you, you have one 24-pin motherboard connection, 4 PCIe cables, 2 PCIe cables with split ends, making a total of 16 pins that can be used for like your GPUs. Like I said, it is that 6x2 plus 6x2 layout there. 3 SATA cables with 4 SATA connections on each cable, 1 Molex cable with 4 connections on each cables. Very good here, especially since they're all sleeved. So nice. Now, as for the internals, we do see good heat sinks that still allow good airflow, and the overall design where the components lie should give this very good airflow. As for the warranty, you get 10 years again, guys. I'm not gonna put those 3-year warranty power supplies on the list. And as for the colors, this only comes in black. But guys, moving on to the number 1, best 750 watt power supply, dollar per dollar. What is the best value? Well, that is the Corsair RM750, coming in at a price tag of $129.99. This is fully modular. This has a motherboard connection, 5 PCIe connections, and 5 SATA and Molex connections. I think that's the most on the list. As for the fan size, this is a 140mm fan. Now, one of the really impressive things here, especially when considering the price and everything that it gives you, is all of the cables are sleeved here. Obviously excluding like SATA and everything else, but everything is sleeved here. That includes in the 2 colorways that it comes in, which is black and white. So usually that section's a little bit later, but yeah, you get it in black and white, and the cables are sleeved in white, which let me tell you, in a white build, such a huge upgrade. So that is a major selling point, especially if you are building a white PC. The included cables are one 24-pin motherboard cable, 3 PCIe cables with an additional 2 cables with that 6+2 by 6+2 design. That's a total of 5 PCIe cables. I mean, that is awesome. 4 SATA cables with 4 connections on each cable, and then 1 Molex cable with 4 connections on each cable, although there's only 1 cable, so 4 connections on that cable. Checking out the internals here, we have a use of heat sinks, and the overall design looks really well done in terms of space between the capacitors and components to give very good airflow when needed. I think this is overall, at least from visually, as you can probably see on the screen, this looks like it's the best design in terms of airiness and where the air is going to flow out of that PSU. As for the warranty, it is a 10-year warranty from Corsair. Overall, if you want a bunch of connections, high quality sleeve cables, a white color option, and great airflow, this is the best value 750 watt PSU you can buy. Again, if you want to check out any of the 5 PSUs in this video, there's Amazon links below for the US, UK, Canada, and international links. And guys, tell me what you think about these videos. I'm planning on doing an 850 watt, 1000 watt, and then doing all of these for different fans and every component basically that you're gonna put in your PC, doing a deep dive, going massively through a bunch of tests into all of these different components to give you really easy ways to build an entire rig and really pinpoint and choose the best components for your PC. So tell me if you want more of these videos. If you do, make sure to subscribe below. These videos are not cheap to make. They do take not only a lot of time testing, but a ton of money. All right, this is a consumer tech review, and I'll see you guys in the next video.